What if everything you've been told about war is only half the story? Every conflict sounds simple at first. There's a threat, a response, a clear reason. But what if those reasons are just the version you're meant to believe? In this video, we're going from number 8 to number 1, and with each step, the truth gets more uncomfortable, until we reach the one secret that explains why some wars never truly end. Number 8 begins with something that sounds obvious but isn't. Wars are rarely about one reason. Let's go back to 2003. The United States prepares for war in Iraq, and the message is clear: there are weapons of mass destruction, and they pose an immediate threat. It sounds urgent. It sounds justified. But months later, those weapons are never found. And yet, the war doesn't stop. Instead, the objective shifts: remove Saddam Hussein, rebuild Iraq, stabilize the region. Now think about that for a second. If the original reason disappears, but the war continues, what does that really mean? Historians often explain that wars operate on multiple layers: security, influence, long-term strategy. But you don't hear all the layers. You hear the version that fits into a headline. And this is where the pattern begins. Because once a war starts, the narrative adapts faster than the reality. And by the time people notice the shift, the situation is already too deep to reverse. Number 7 reveals something even more uncomfortable. Leaders don't always tell the full story. Imagine being an American in the late 1930s. The Great Depression has just shaken the country, jobs are uncertain, and the last thing people want is another war overseas. That was the reality before World War II. Most people didn't want involvement. But slowly, something changes. The narrative shifts. Threats feel closer. The urgency increases. Until suddenly, war no longer feels like a choice, it feels necessary. Now here's the key insight. Leaders don't always lie outright, but they don't always say everything either. Because public support doesn't come from complicated explanations, it comes from simple, emotional ones. And when a story is simplified, details get left behind. The question is, which details? Because what's removed from the story can be just as powerful as what's included. And once public opinion shifts, reversing it becomes almost impossible. Number 6 takes this even further. We often think wars are inevitable, like they're unstoppable forces of history. But in reality, many of the biggest conflicts started with decisions made by just a few people. In 1941, Adolf Hitler made the decision to invade the Soviet Union, opening one of the deadliest fronts in history. It wasn't unavoidable, it was a choice. In 1990, Iraqi forces moved into Kuwait in a matter of hours, triggering a global response and eventually bringing the United States into war. Now pause and think about that. Millions of lives changed, entire regions reshaped, all because of decisions made behind closed doors. That's not just history, that's how fragile global stability really is. Because sometimes, peace depends on a single decision not being made. And when that decision happens, the consequences move faster than anyone can control. And here's the unsettling part: those decisions are often made with incomplete information and extreme pressure. Which means history isn't just shaped by power. It's shaped by moments where there is no perfect choice. Number 5 uncovers something that's rarely said out loud. Many wars are driven by resources, but not presented that way. Oil, land, trade routes, strategic access, these are often at the core. During World War II, Japan expanded across Asia partly because it lacked access to critical resources needed to sustain its economy. Germany pushed into Eastern Europe with similar strategic motivations. But here's the catch. You never hear it explained that way. Because "we need resources" doesn't inspire people. It doesn't sound urgent or emotional. So instead, the story becomes about security, protection, or ideology. And that shift in storytelling changes everything. Because people don't just support wars, they support the reasons they're given. And once those reasons are accepted, questioning them becomes much harder. By the time the deeper motives become visible, the outcome is already unfolding. And in many cases, control over resources doesn't just win wars, it shapes the world that exists after them. So the real battle isn't always about territory. It's about who controls what comes next. Number 4 is where things start to feel different. Not all wars are meant to be fully fought. It sounds strange, But it's true. During the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union had enough nuclear weapons to destroy the world multiple times over. But they never fought each other directly. Instead, they fought through proxy wars: Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan. This wasn't hesitation. It was strategy. Because a full-scale war would have meant total destruction for both sides. So instead, conflict was controlled, managed, balanced. And that reveals something unexpected. Sometimes, war isn't about winning everything. It's about avoiding the worst possible outcome. It's like playing a game where both sides know the final move ends everything. So they keep playing just below that level. And that controlled tension can last for years, even decades. But here's the twist. Living in that constant tension creates its own kind of instability. And over time, even controlled conflicts can spiral in ways no one originally planned. Number 3 shifts the focus to something most people never see. The most important battles are often invisible. When people think of war, they imagine tanks, soldiers, explosions. But behind the scenes, there's another battlefield: intelligence, espionage, covert operations. During the Cold War, both sides ran massive spy networks, gathering information and influencing global events without direct confrontation. And here's the part most people don't realize. Much of this is still classified today, which means the history we see is incomplete. It's like watching a movie where key scenes are missing. You understand what happened, but not why everything unfolded the way it did. And sometimes, those missing pieces are the ones that explain everything. Without them, the story feels complete, but it isn't. Because the smallest piece of hidden information can change the meaning of an entire event. And in many cases, the outcome of a war was decided long before the first shot was even fired. Number 2 takes this one step further. History itself can be erased. There was an operation called Operation Legacy, where British authorities destroyed or hid documents related to colonial rule. Not rewritten, not explained, just removed. Thousands of records disappeared. Now think about what that means. If parts of history can be erased, then what we know is only a fraction of the full picture. Because history isn't just about what happened, it's about what survived. And what survives isn't always the complete truth. It's the version that was allowed to remain. And once information disappears, it becomes almost impossible to question what replaced it. Over time, absence turns into accepted reality, and gaps become invisible to future generations. And when no one knows what's missing, even asking the right questions becomes difficult. And now we reach number 1, the most uncomfortable truth of all. Wars continue because they serve a purpose. Not for everyone, but for some. Wars can boost industries, strengthen political power, and unite populations under a common enemy. If a country is struggling internally, nothing shifts attention faster than an external conflict. And that's been true throughout history. Now think about that. If a situation creates economic or strategic advantages, then ending it becomes complicated. Not impossible, but complicated. And that's why some wars feel endless. Not because there's no solution, but because the solution changes the balance of power. And when the balance of power shifts, so do the interests of those involved. Which means peace isn't just about stopping conflict, it's about changing incentives. And as long as those incentives remain, the conditions that sustain conflict never fully disappear. So now step back and look at everything together. Wars aren't just about enemies or events. They're shaped by decisions, narratives, resources, and hidden strategies. What you hear is often just the surface. What's underneath is where the real story exists. And once you start seeing that pattern, history stops feeling random. It starts feeling calculated. If this video made you see history differently, then you're already thinking at a level most people never reach. And trust me, this is just the beginning of what's hidden beneath the surface. If you want to be smarter every day, like and subscribe.